you for
You can see what?
I can see you. I can see Jesus, but not you.
Okay. Often turning the video off and then on again, so it should come back now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, um, Jesus, because you have done some Goenka retreats and you understand what's there, it probably would then be beneficial for you to speak of it in the Goenka sense, saying some things that are good and things that are not so good about the Goenka method, uh, to put into context the what the Buddha actually taught. And so, in fact, the first thing that we can look at is when Goenka uses the word anapana,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't use the word anapanasati, which is the way that uh, actually that's very quite famous because there's the name of the sutta, the Anapanasati Sutta.
Yes, it will say on the
Okay.
Parasati.
And the next thing is that in fact Goenka doesn't talk very much about sati at all, especially not in the sense of the Eightfold Noble Path. But the way to practice anapanasati is through the Eightfold Noble Path, that the actual real teachings of the Buddha are all based on the Four Noble Truths. 100%. That's all he teaches. And in fact, there's four different suttas we have found where he makes the statement that both formerly and now I teach only one thing, and that is dukkha, dukkha nirodha. Now, in the West, and the way that it's taught, even Goenka talks about it like this, and for sure in the Mahasi method, the way that people practice is look at the dukkha, see the dukkha, inspect the dukkha, associate this dukkha with that dukkha, go pull that dukkha apart, take the dukkha, spread it on your walls, and cover your house in dukkha. Then you go to the city dump and find more dukkha. All right?
Yeah.
Dukkha, 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 dukkha
Yeah.
everywhere. And then when we finally see it at such depth, maybe we'll do something about it.
Yeah.
All right. And this is what seems to be the standard teaching that has made it into the West. And the
Mm-hmm.
retreats that are set up really set it up for the students to really experience some dukkha. I mean, they take your passport, they take your books, they take your cameras, they take your um, cell phones, your laptops, your pens, your pencils, and basically tell you to tape up your mouth
Exactly. Yeah.
and keep your
That's how
eyes
it
down
works.
and
That's it.
pretend like you're in seclusion. All 150 of you pretend like nobody else is there. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's a delusionary system that they set up.
Mm-hmm.
But what the Buddha teaches is go to the forest, go to the foot of a tree, go to an empty hut, not a meditation hall full of cute young legs, kneecaps, and things like that, long hairs.
Yeah.
No, go to an empty hut and get into seclusion.
Mm-hmm.
So, right from the get go, retreats are artificial. They're artificial. Why and when did retreats get started? The answer to that is that they started in Burma in the 1950s. That Goenka was probably in much of the ground floor of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then because of Ledi Sayadaw and Mahasi Sayadaw and their friendship and kinship, the Mahasi system started doing those same retreats that Ledi did with Uva And so now the Western world is all about retreats, except that even in Thailand there are retreats, but the real education is done one on one
Okay.
or few, not a big retreat. Um, the way that we look at it here is taking the universal primary school model. You put all the beginners in one class. You put the first graders in this class. You put the second graders in that class. You put the third graders in that class. The problem with the retreats is that they do them so infrequently, and students hardly ever get ready to actually do a second retreat, and they wind up just doing the same old first retreat over and over and over again. And so it's kind of a perpetual first grade. Why? Because one size fits all, and that we don't get the kind of an individualized situation. It's sort of like going to the doctor, and all you really get is a seat at the back of a lecture hall.
Okay.
That's all you got. You came to see the doctor. You came expecting the doctor to see you, and he doesn't see you because you're so far back in the crowd.
Yeah.
And so when students are sitting in those retreats and have questions, they don't get a chance to answer it. Oh, you're not supposed to talk now. You're not supposed to stand up and argue with the guru on the podium.
Yeah, they have 5 minutes a day if sign up for interviews.
Right. Exactly.
But I don't know if it's a Spanish thing, but no, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 classes every day. Nobody goes to interview, nobody.
Well, if that is so valuable, then perhaps we need to do a whole lot more of it. The problem is that there's so few people who are skilled at giving better, longer interviews.
Yeah.
That nobody in the Goenka system actually got a Goenka kind of status, that he did not develop a Sangha. He did not develop a lineage. He did not encourage half a dozen or a dozen of his students who kept hanging around. Hey, you start teaching. You teach this hour. And you over there, you teach tomorrow. You know, that kind of thing. To get the students involved with it. This is how they do it in Thailand, that in fact, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa put me on the spot to start teaching before I was ordained.
Okay.
That in fact, by the time that I was ordained, I was leading 4 groups. Some of the groups that I led as a layman, and in fact, one of the videos, one of the set of photos that I've got is an ordination, to where the ordination happened right after the retreat. So all the people on the retreat came to this great big ordination.
Nice.
And so, but the point is that even with that, I had more than one teacher, that I had several teachers actually kind of, in a way, formalized and ganging up on me. But in another way, all of the monks were teachers of each other. And that's another issue with the retreats. When they want people to remain in silence, that means that nobody gets a chance to develop a relationship with anybody.
Yeah.
And so when we go to the retreats, we go without having a relationship established or much instruction or anything about it. And now we're in the retreat, and we have 5 or 10 minutes a day to talk to someone who's in a hurry because they've got 150 people to see. And then when the retreat is finished, it's, you paid your fees, all is done, we're finished here, go your own way, you didn't meet any new people, and you didn't establish a relationship with the teacher, but you paid your fees. I mean, the way that Goenka is, they say, oh, well, the beginning students, the very beginners, this is free. But then in the end of the course, oh, but all you beginners, now you've done the retreat, you're no longer beginners, now you're old students, pay up. Did you notice that one?
Yeah. I mean, because I was manager 3 months, and not a lot of people pay. More, at least 40% of people, they don't pay nothing. They just go. Like, yeah, but yeah, it's how you say. It's how you say. It's not a lot of post-retreat care, you know.
Okay. Well, retreat or not retreat, there's a several stage process that needs to happen. And one of the ways of looking at it is that we need to get the mind fit for work. And fit for work means that the mind is free from the hindrances, free from unwholesome thoughts, and going in the direction of joy. Okay, so if the mind is now free, um, fit for work, that means that we can use that work and start to change the way that we feel, because everybody feels the way that they want to feel every time. They just do it on automatic pilot with an old set of programs that we developed in childhood, so that whatever used to make you feel bad makes you feel bad now. But if you recognize you've got a choice about the way you feel, then you can stop feeling the way that you're in the habit of feeling and start feeling the way you want to feel. Now that's the teaching of the Buddha right there, the dukkha, dukkha nirodha. If you feel a way that you don't want to feel because you set it up that way, then make a change. And make that change right now. That's the real teachings of the Buddha, is to make that change right here, right now. But we can only do that if the mind is really fit for work. And so a retreat, if we're going to do a retreat, needs to get it organized so that in the first few days the students get their mind fit for work, so that then the second part of the retreat they can actually get the work done. Now, the scanning of the body that they do for the 7 days leading up to a strong determination system never did get rid of those hindrances. That's why it's so hard. If we were able to get rid of the hindrances completely, then doing the body scans not only is a piece of cake, but it's a blast. It's a lot of fun. But we
Yeah.
haven't gotten rid of the hindrances yet. And the reason for that is because Goenka does it the way that most meditation teachers throughout history have taught Anapanasati, and that is according to the plan that was set out in the suttas. And the Anapanasati Sutta is arranged according to the Satipatthana, the four foundations of mindfulness. Now, the four foundations of mindfulness um, were well established in human existence, in human psyche, long before the Buddha, millennia before the Buddha. That in fact the four primary elements was deeply buried in Greek philosophy as well as Indian philosophy, and that is solid things, liquid things, gaseous things, the air, and then fire. Those four items, then what the Buddha did is he took them from the outside, like the ground and the water and the fire and the wind and the smoke, and put them on the inside. But they didn't change the order. They just brought it on the inside. So now we have the body, we have the fluid feelings, we have the mind on fire, and then we have all the smoke and the heat that the mind on fire produces. So the smoke and the heat, that's the Dhamma, or that's what we produce. And uh, just just a shout out to the music, um, the Platters, 1952. When your heart's on fire, burning with desire, smoke gets in your eyes. Have you heard that song?
It rings a bell, yeah.
Yeah. When your heart's on fire, burning with desire, smoke gets in your eyes. Okay, so that's exactly what we're talking about here, that the smoke that we create then blinds us to the reality. Or another way of thinking about it is that we create our own reality. We don't live in the real world of our senses. We make sense out of what we perceive with our senses. And that's what we live by is the outcome of our own microscopic, poorly conducted investigation. So one kind of seeing or one kind of consciousness is I see. I see the daylight. I see a tree, which is a different kind of consciousness than I see what you mean, which is an understanding. Okay. And that it's that internal understanding that we make that then is what actually contacts us. Not reality as it is, it's our constructed reality.
Okay.
And so that's what generates our feelings. What contacts us generates our feelings. Now, if we let that on automatic, then the feelings are going to come up based upon whatever things that we created, whether they're wholesome or not, whether they're real or not. We didn't care before because we didn't know that it was wise to start looking at what we're thinking. And so this is what the real teaching is, which is the Eightfold Noble Path, is in order, wake up. Sati, number one, we have to wake up to be here in the present moment, to start receiving senses from the outside into the senses, into the eyes, into the ears, into the body posture, into the reality of the world that we're living in right now, and come out of the daydream. Coming out of the daydreams that we create, the conceptualizations, which is almost always dangerous because we learned it from ordinary people that had ordinary problems. And so we picked up those ordinary problems without doing a really good investigation. So now it's time for an investigation. What are we going to investigate? Whatever comes up. One by one as they occur, whatever thoughts that come, is this wholesome or what? Is this a wholesome thought? This is the actual practice that we need to develop based upon the Eightfold Noble Path, rather than the Satipatthana Sutta, the way that Goenka's teaching is. And so we get in the idea of going through a particular order. And the body comes first in our list of things. And so that's why Goenka is so fixated on the body that he has the students do body, body, body for 10 days. First with the breathing and then with the body scanning, and not really paying much attention to the other three aspects of the Satipatthana. But there is a method or a direction or a way to do it based upon a particular order. Now, the Buddha is very, very clear in many cases that he says that right view, right noble view comes first. The reason for that is because if you don't have the right view, you're not even going to develop sati. But instantaneously in this moment, sati comes first. To remember now to look. Remember now to do that investigation, to have that viewing, to look. And when we look at what's going on with discernment, we'll come up with either it's wholesome or it's not wholesome. That's the only really criteria that we're going to apply. Now, there's several ways we can do that, and that is that if the thoughts that we're having are about someplace else, not here, then those thoughts are probably going to be unwholesome. We're going to have a thought about Chicago or Washington, D.C., or maybe the Tesla plant in Austin, Texas. Whatever it comes up, that thought is not here. It's someplace else. And then the other criteria is that it may be true, or it was true, or it might be true, but right here, right now, it's not here. Like all of our old past memories. And the way that we used to feel based upon our old past memories, that we're going to start creating some new feelings with some new positive ways. That we're going to, in fact, in the Anapanasati Sutta, in the fire part, in the mind, the Chitta Nupassana, is where the Buddha talks about to investigate this mind and then to gladden the mind. Step number 10 of Anapanasati is to gladden the mind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I ever heard Goenka mention that ever. About brighten the mind, gladden the mind, get the mind out of its suffering.
There is 2 occasions, 3 occasions during the 10 days that say smile, but it's not very often repeated. So it's easy to forget. It's like smilingly come back to the breath. Not emphasizes, not emphasis, not emphasis on it.
Well, in that regard, they've got it backwards. They think that the smile is the cause and the effect is a gladdened mind, but the reverse is actually true, and that is that the smile is the result of what's happening in the mind. Now, they are deeply interconnected. That's another part of the Anapanasati Sutta, is to recognize that the body conditions the mind conditions the feelings condition the mind conditions the body. And I can give you many examples of any of those things. When the body is physically sick, we generally feel bad. But often we don't even know that the body is sick. All we know is we feel bad. Also, when someone is angry, when they're feeling angry and uptight, they can't think straight. Why is that? Because all of the blood that's going to be ready for the fighting and the flighting is now all over the body, and it's not up here where we need it. So we're ready to fight rather than to think. And so the mind and the body are interrelated, and they condition one another this way. But this is something that needs to be seen and investigated rather than just merely mentioned or talked about. But the important thing here is, on the Eightfold Noble Path, right effort. To take the right effort, right noble effort. Well, first off, let's define right effort as the least amount of possible effort to actually get the job done. Just the right amount of effort to get the job done. The example that I use for this is often at the playground. The child wants to swing and he wants mommy or daddy to push the swing to get her started, right? When we start pushing that swing, it's actually a lot of effort. But after 2 or 3 pushes, now the swing has got some momentum, and now we can push it really easy. But if we stop pushing, it will come back to ground zero again. And now it's going to take a lot of effort to get it going again. And so in a retreat, the first day or 2 is going to take to get that right effort going and then keep it in a momentum. Because if we lose that momentum, then it's going to take a couple of days to get it going again. And yet people do that on a regular basis in meditation, that they'll get some value out of their practice and say, hot dog, I feel good now. And then they quit meditating, and 2 weeks later, some disaster happens, or maybe 2 months later, they quit practicing. And then things go back to zero again. So getting a regular practice and then staying in that practice is the easiest way to keep that right effort going. Then, in fact, soon enough, it becomes effortless because we keep putting what it takes to get in there and to push and to keep pushing, keep remembering to change those unwholesome thoughts into wholesome thoughts. Now, this is all over the suttas. I can name dozens of suttas to where this concept is put out. In the Buddha's description of the Eightfold Noble Path, he talks about right effort as a fact item in the way that one's right effort is to remove unwholesome thoughts and put wholesome thoughts in place. And Sutta number 19, the name of that sutta is 2 kinds of thought. And in that sutta, he goes to great length to talk about what is an unwholesome thought and what is a wholesome thought, and how to start having wholesome thoughts, one after another. And so this is actually the practice of Anapanasati, and we incorporate the body with that. And here's how we do it. That by breathing well, breathing long, breathing comfortably, breathing easy. You probably know enough about the Anapanasati Sutta to recognize that the body scanning is actually step 3 of Anapanasati, leading to step 4, which is relaxation of the body. So the real intention of scanning is to relax. And yet these strong determination sittings do not relax the body. So there's incongruency in the retreat in that regard too, that we're actually practicing to relax the body, just like we're practicing with the mind to get the mind into a wholesome state. We're getting the body into a relaxed state, because those two things go hand in hand. And so the way that we get the body into a relaxed state is by knowing the body, but we don't have to do it through a formal scanning process, but rather to check things out as we're breathing to find out where the tensions are so that we can remove those tensions in the body. That this is an informal method, but often formal methods wind up missing the point. The formality of the method becomes more important than the outcome. But practicing informally, we can keep track of the fact that the whole point of this is to get the body into a state of relaxation. And so breathing well is a very important thing to get the body energized, to get all of the old carbon dioxide that's been forming in the body because of shallow breathing, and get the robust breathing going so that we can get the body back into a state of homeostasis so that it can relax. And so with the mind, gladdening the mind, brightening the mind, investigating the states of the mind is in and brightening those things, changing our attitude, in fact, and getting the body relaxed and comfortable. And also there's one more point, and that is that when we want to practice in a safe place. So going to an empty hut, going to the foot of a tree, going to an empty spot in the forest. I guess nowadays people think of the forest as a dangerous place. But the reality is that a meditation hall is a dangerous place. There's a whole lot more cute kneecaps in the meditation hall than there is in the forest. I'm speaking of the old joke, the Vipassana romance.
Vipassana romance is a danger, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I can tell.
Uh-huh. So, this is also a point, is to get the body in a private room, your bedroom, your car, someplace where you're alone and you feel really, really safe. So that means that if you're in your car, you're not going to have the car parked on the street. You're going to have it pulled off the road so that you're really safe. Okay? Safe, secure, and comfortable is the way we want to have the body. Safe, secure, comfortable, and yet all of these meditation postures that the Westerners are trying because the Asians can do it. But here in South Asia, in India, Thailand, people sit on the floor to eat. Furniture is just now beginning to come to the country. But when people go to the Watts, when they go to the ashrams, they sit on the floor. So they're already comfortable and used to sitting on the floor. Westerners, as soon as we're 2 years old, we're grabbed off the floor that was probably carpeted anyway and put into a high chair. And we wind up living the rest of our lives in furniture rather than in nature. And so going back to the nature, sitting in the ground on the floor, is uncomfortable for the Westerners. So I do not necessarily recommend that you've got to go back to that nature and learn to sit on the floor. That it's better to get your body comfortable and work with that, okay? And so getting the body comfortable, secure, and relaxed will help us with the mind, so that the mind and the body start to work on the feelings, so that we literally now can use the body and the mind to allow us to actually begin to feel the way that we want to feel. which is right there in the Anapanasati Sutta, the Vedana section, that talks about developing sukha as a skill. Sukha. Guess what? Sukha is exactly opposite of dukkha. When you're getting yourself into a state of sukha, there is no dukkha left. You have already fulfilled right here, right now, the teachings of the Buddha. Everything that the Buddha wanted you to do, everything, all of these highfalutin ideals about everything is here now, right in front of us when we get ourselves into a state of sukha. This is why it should be developed. And what are the qualities of sukha? Feeling safe. Not just being safe with the body, but actually feeling safe, feeling secure, feeling comfortable. So that now we can begin to also add this new thing called feeling satisfied. What is satisfaction? It's exactly the opposite of being dissatisfied, which is classical definition of dukkha. Getting ourselves into a state of satisfaction. And we want to apply that over and over and over again so that we can get into that state fairly easily. And as we're doing that, we also can begin to develop being able to maintain it for longer periods of time. Okay? And so now we've got 3 items of the Eightfold Noble Path, as well as we've talked about step 1 and step 3 and step 4 and step 9 and step 10, and now we're talking about step 4, 5, and 6 of Anapanasati. 16 steps, and we're dancing around it like this was a waltz rather than marching through it one piece at a time. Because we're doing it according to the Eightfold Noble Path rather than according to the order of the body, the feeling, the mind, and the mind's objects. So this is the way we begin to practice, is by changing the mind to get it comfortable, to change the body to get it comfortable, to change the body so that we feel safe and secure. Mentally, we can feel safe and secure, and then in the reality of the feelings, to feel safe and secure. Because our society has never taught us to feel safe and secure. They tell us you can feel safe and secure when you get your work done, which is never going to happen. As soon as you get one thing going, we'll get you something else. And there's one thing after another work to do. And so we never feel satisfied. We never feel like that we've got the job done. So here's where we're going to start practice. The job that needed to be done has just been done. We're finished. Yeah, I can relax. And what job is it that needs to be done? Throwing out all the jobs that we had on our to-do list. Throwing the to-do list out. That's the job that we need to do, is to throw all of the unwholesome ideas, all the work that needs to be done out, and say, I've done everything I need to do. And now I can rest. And that's actually the teachings of the Buddha. But it's kind of hidden away. And in fact, on the Eightfold Noble Path, we've only done 3 things. Sati, to remember to look at what you're doing and make a change. Right effort. Let's change things. What are we going to change? We're going to change the unwholesome into the wholesome. We're going to change the insecurity into security. We're going to change the uptightness into relaxation. Now, as we do this over and over and over and over again, practicing. Why? Look how many years you've been practicing being unhappy. Look how many years you have been talking yourself into feeling bad. So now we're going to practice, intensely practice, to start talking ourselves into feeling good, with the result is that we wind up feeling good. We become successful at feeling good. Now, success is a little bit different than satisfaction. Satisfaction is just when things are the way that they are, and that's okay. But here we're actually adding the ingredient that we have been practicing, we have been doing something, and we have been getting successful at it and getting good results. that we can change the unwholesome thoughts into wholesome. This fourth step now is called the Sammasankappa in the Eightfold Noble Path. It's also, they use the word Shraddha or Shada, which actually is translated wrongly as the word faith. This has nothing to do with faith. This has everything to do with gathering evidence, collecting evidence. What evidence are we collecting? The evidence that I can feel good, and I can feel good again, and I can feel good again, and I can feel the way that I want to, and I can feel safe and secure and satisfied over and over and over again. And that brings this confidence up to the level of attitude. We begin to change the attitude that we were born with into the attitude of a winner. The attitude that we were born with, well, everybody is born, every human child is born incapable of marching around with a toy sword. Not one day old infant is ready to play baseball, especially not in the major leagues. Right? We are all born helpless. That in fact we're born a victim to the world around us. That if we're not nurtured and taken care of, we're going to die. Those babies that are poorly taken care of wind up with a condition called an abandonment issue, so that they can't tolerate people walking away or leaving them. They can't stand goodbyes, because every goodbye is a reminder that I have been abandoned again. Poor me, I'm about to die. Nobody's taking care of me. So that's how bad it is. We get in that feeling. Everybody has a little bit of abandonment issue, but I've seen people where it was big time. I've seen, for instance, that the new wife will actually start a fight with her husband just as the time that he's about to leave to go to work, because she can't stand it when he's gone. She would rather be there and have him fighting. She would rather ruin his life than for her to be alone. And sometimes we feel like that ourselves. So, we were born as a victim. We were raised as a victim. We were put into school as a victim. Do your homework, pick up your toys, learn your ABCs, clean up your room, you know. And so we get ordered around, and we come into a condition that the Buddha refers to as the woeful state of being an animal. What is an animal? A draft animal does what he's told to do without getting much reward from it. We just do what we're told to do. Well, guess what? When we're in school in the first grade, we don't get much benefit out of being in first grade. There's too much to learn, and this little that we've learned is not enough. About the best thing we can do is get a gold star, a plastic gold star on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
That's about all we ever get out of it, okay? And that there's a draft animal that I saw in India, one story, a donkey. And that donkey had a big wooden pole strapped to his back, and the other end of the pole was strapped to a millstone. Only about the size of a desk, but it was heavy enough that donkey had to pull that thing around in about a 30-foot circle. And in this millstone, this Indian dude put sugarcane. And as the millstone was going around, he'd take a glass and fill it full of the sugarcane juice and sell it for 10 rupees right there on the spot. Quite a tourist attraction. Wasn't cold or anything. It just came off the stalks, plus maybe a little bit of heat from the grind. Here's a question for you. How much of that sugarcane juice do you think that donkey ever got?
Not much.
Not much. If anything, all they would ever get is a shaft that nobody wanted. Okay. Have you ever felt like that in a job?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, that's right. But that's how we were taught. We were taught you got to go work for the man, and the man's going to get the benefit, and here you are, nothing but a dumb draft animal. And so a lot of us do what we're told to do, but we resent it. We don't like it. We're doing something because we were told to do it way back when. Even if we take a new job, we took that new job because somebody way back when says you ought to take that job. And so we get into the habit of doing things that way. We're victims. Here with Anapanasati, we're actually practicing to become a winner, to become successful, to be able to control our own mind for the first time in our lives, to be able to put happy thoughts that would otherwise be unhappy thoughts of some kind or another. That we can do that, by the way, Martin, with music. Have happy songs. Way back in the 1950s, and I think this just had to do with the end of the war. World War II. When World War II was over, plus the fact that most of the military bands did Dorsey and jigaboo music, dancing, this kind of stuff. So coming into the 1950s, we got a lot of joyful music. But by the 1990s, all the popular music has gone really dark with gangster rap, heavy metal, and all of that kind of stuff. So music goes into cycles. And so for us, it's better for us to choose happy music. Music that has the kind of feelings built into the song that we actually want to experience. So I offer you now the James Brown meditation.
Sure.
Have you ever heard of James Brown?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure that you have. Okay.
I feel good. No?
I feel, yeah, but you got to do that first part first. You know, it starts with a squeal. I feel good. Da, 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 like I knew I would now. Okay. So this is the kind of music that we need to start playing for ourselves inside of our own minds, that we do feel good, that we are successful, that we can create our own happiness, that we can use these triggers like this song that I just sang to help trigger us into those good feelings, as opposed to, say, Bach's Requiem for the Dead in B minor. Or Pavane, which is a tribute to a dead princess, I think. So anyway, Pavane. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. You've heard that, I'm sure.
I'm sure I heard of that.
Oh yeah, they play it in funeral homes all the time.
Yeah, that's very yeah.
So the kind of music that we play has kind of an attitude built into it. Whether it's major, whether it's minor, what kind of cadence it has, whether it's slow, whether it's what they call upbeat, major keys, what kind of cadence do we have? Do we have those really strange chords like minor six?
Minus.
Or incomplete dominant ninths? That's the weird one. Okay, so the chords that we play have to do with it. And major chords generally wind up having a happier, they're not so beautiful in the kind of thing that they do with the ear, but they also bring on those happy feelings. Just the simple scale. Da, 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 da. That's the whole scale right there. Joy to the world, the Lord has come. Dum, dum, dum. It's a scale. That's all it is, a major scale. Did you know that?
Yeah, majors, yes. Minor is kind of gloomy, no? Kind of a little bit of melancholy in it, no? Right? Like, I cannot say now which one. Yeah, but I know that.
Okay, so what we're saying here is that we actually have to take the effort to gladden the mind, to brighten the mind. We could use music. We can use things like becoming interested in what you've got on your desk and look at what the arrangements are. But whatever it is, it has to do with the two qualities of one, be here now, and number two, be joyful, be upbeat, to gladden the mind, to brighten the mind, to find something useful in the sense of happy thoughts to have, as opposed to useful in the sense of getting work done. So the thoughts that we have of getting work done are actually incomplete because the job itself didn't get done by having thoughts about doing the work. But here, the thoughts of doing the work is the work, and the proceeds of that work are right here, right now, gladdening the mind, brightening it up. And then we feel good, and we know that we feel good. When we do that over and over again, we get confidence. Sada. The confidence is that I know that I can do this. And when that builds, there's a passage in one of the sutras that says that no matter how obstructed the mind gets, no matter what kind of hindrances can come in, the student knows that he can throw that stuff out and come back to the reality of the moment. He can see things the way that they really are. Now, that confidence that we're talking about, the Buddha says, is the first step of the Noble Path. It is supramundane. It's not held by ordinary people. It's above the world. That's the difference, okay? What's the difference between good meditators and ordinary people? Ordinary people don't know that they've got control of their own mind. But a noble knows that he can, in fact, take control over his own mind just when he needs to do that the most. A really difficult situation for you. Like Martin, you walking out on stage with a 500 audience. Because unless you've done it a whole lot of times, then we get butterflies in our stomach. Just the thought of being in front of a great big audience.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Here's another example, and that is being wheeled into the hospital on a gurney. What kind of thoughts are you going to have? They've got you strapped down to the gurney. You're going to start checking out what part of the body is broken. How's my arms? How's my legs? Do I still have a penis? What's going on here? Okay. Another example would be getting arrested, getting busted by the cops. These are times when we actually need anapanasati the most. And so that's what we're planning on. We're planning on getting away from it all, getting in seclusion, getting to the point that it's actually easy to practice. The only thing that we have to deal with here is the imaginary crap that we carry around called memory, which is very lightweight. I mean, you cannot take all your memories, package them up, put them on the scales, and weigh it in at 300, 500 pounds. You can't do it. There's nothing to it, right? So we practice in seclusion so that when we go out into the world, we've got a skill that we can count on. So that when the going gets tough, we need sati to remember that I can handle this, rather than saying, oh, poor me, I've got a tough situation here, because that's the way that we've always done, no sati. But as soon as sati comes, hey, I can handle this. I can choose to feel the way I want to feel. I can be happy and friendly to that cop rather than afraid of him. If I'm afraid of him, I want to run away. If I run away, he'll get me. So it's pretty stupid to be afraid of a cop. If you're friendly with them, that's new to them. They like that. So this is the whole point then of the anapanasati, is that we're going to practice to build a set of skills that wind up allowing us to feel the way that we want to feel, and then we go out and we begin to test that out in the world. We don't test it before we've got it, but once we've got it, then we go test it. An example of that is two guys are on their way home from wherever, and they each one has a flat tire. One of them has never been to the gym, and he's struggling with that flat tire. The other one just came from the gym, and he's just going to check out his gym stuff. He's going to pump that thing up and change that tire, and he's got a good attitude about it. All right? So that's the reason that we're practicing Anapanasati, is to make the mind strong, so that when we need it strong, it's strong. It's there. We've got the confidence that we can handle anything. That's where we're practicing, is to where we can handle anything without being the victim to it anymore. That in fact, the whole point of this is to learn to feel like, be like, behave like, and feel like a champion. That you're in charge of your life, you're the boss. You can feel the way that you want to in any situation. You can handle any situation and come out on top. Your attitude. That's what we're practicing here, to be free from the suffering of I'm not good enough. That I'm a victim here. That I can't get what I want.